Good morning, everybody. We are back with day 4 when things get really interesting from the 2025 World Cup. Will Anderson here, as I have been for the previous 3 days, and we have a special treat for you in the booth, everybody. The OG Scrabble commentating GOAT, Jesse Matthews. Jesse, thank you so much for joining me this morning.
But of course, I had to come back for at least a little bit. And for those who know, I have a traditional way of saying hello to the one and only William Anderson as we get to cover some Collins action here. I am excited. I'm a little rusty. I hope you'll forgive me now that we have a couple of games. Going to get back up to speed. Will's been letting me know. Nigel's Nigeling and Collins is Collinsing as we are doing this morning. I'm assuming these boys are near the top of the board.
It's true. Yeah. So we are sticking with Collins. And for the record, Jesse is very consistent with that greeting. I love the William that I get every time I see Jesse. And today being no exception, of course. And we've got Josh Castellano currently in first place, as he was at the end of day 2 as well, 15-6. Alec Sjoholm, former North American Scrabble champion, right behind him, just a couple wins back in 4th place right now. Nobody in this division is doing Nigel things with records like 20-1, which is where Nigel currently is in the WoW division. We are very likely to check back in with him this afternoon. Collins much more knotted up, Jesse, the likes of Josh Castellano. No surprise also to see Dave Wiegand right in the mix, Wellington Jigare. Amazing players to watch.
I'm just going to pull up the standings list here, please, so I can make sure I know somewhat what I'm talking about as we go on here. Will, would you mind dropping a link for me in our little chat, just so I can throw that
Absolutely.
open?
Yep. So standings are going to be right here for you. And in the meantime, Alec with kind of a weird opening rack. He plays which that's probably worth putting on the board. Could have been interesting also to exchange tiles here with those really nice bingo tiles, multiple R's, several E's. Can't really quibble with putting a word on the board here either, because I'm not sure what exactly you would change if you're Alec here. And he's drawn a little bit weirdly. He might be at the mercy of Josh's next play to get a bingo down there. So short opening. I'm sure opinions are divided on this, Jesse. Would you play or exchange tiles? Easy to go either direction.
I was just going to say, I have a really hard time with racks like this one where there's plainly nothing to do as far as like a bingo anyway. And it's just, do you trade 1? Do you trade 3? Do you play for 6 points? It's kind of like, it all sucks, quite frankly. So like, what do you do? And it looked like, based on the choices that were on the lovely Quackle Analyzer, they all were kind of like this. So I'd have a hard time changing, but it also is just like, hi, here's a free double letter score with the ability to add high counters very quickly. It's just like, I don't know. I get into this spiral very quickly if I try to think too much about it. So I just pick one. It's like, oh, I hope it's okay.
Yeah, the time at some point, the time becomes more valuable than splitting hairs of the equity. I guess my big question is why not ERE if you're going to play those letters, and maybe try to avoid placing an E next to a double letter score. There are some problems with that as well, different hooks on either side, but I think if I was going to play those 3, I'd probably try to mix up the order. But again, these are the hair splittingest of hair splitting decisions. And meanwhile, Josh is trying to figure out what to do. He's got a bunch of different options here. He could just plop down his X if he wanted to play XU, but maybe the rest of the tiles aren't quite good enough. He's thinking about Codex hooking Reed, Jesse. That looks pretty nice. You'd like to get rid of the U if you could, and that does accomplish that.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of this particular play. Puts you up quickly. It's blockish, I like to say, with the C and the X in either position. I mean, you're not trying to block, obviously, but it's also not doing your opponent any favors and leaving anything super easy to score with in response, other than perhaps paralleling the X. But even that's not too bad. In a worst case scenario, if they were to bingo or bonus back right away, you're probably going to have the triple lane open and you should be doing just fine in response.
It's an interesting question where to put Caudex, as it actually goes on either side, the dree hook. Maybe that's not quite as normal of a word as read on the other side, but you get the same score playing on either side with Caudex. And ultimately, Josh going back to just our old mainstay 2-letter word XU, maybe liking that he has an O for EXO, but he does not have a tile that goes under the U. So he would have to draw one. He was going to get underlaps there. So yeah, tough call there. I'm not sure if I have a strong feeling. I do feel like this leave maybe becomes a bingo, hooking Dree or Cree sometimes, or maybe Dex, but maybe not enough to justify sacrificing a handful of points against Codex. Very difficult decision. Now, I'm not about to sit here and say that was some kind of huge error, but wow, look at that, Jesse. Josh with the Z setup. He just had to draw it.
Hmm.
So yeah, the Z now playing right on top here. Josh did not have that tile when he played XU, but if somehow Alec does not obstruct that spot, which seems unlikely, it feels like EAR. Very natural play for Alec here. No bingos available for him. You can keep a solid bingo lead with that play and undouble your A's at a cost of giving up that valuable E. I think that seems like a nice in between play, Jesse, rather than fish 1A for an incredibly low score. And instead, Alec plays Rye. That's an interesting choice. He wants to keep that E, but it does expose a triple when maybe that wasn't necessary.
Yeah, I'm not sure about Rye. Uh, I'm not really sure how much that gives back that he couldn't have already accomplished with ear, or even if you were to really have some cojones and just play R for 3 points. I'm not sure what Rye would do that the other two don't. Although I'd have a hard time playing R, for just the 3 points. I'm not sure.
Agreed. Yeah, I mean, it's certainly this play. If Alec had any inkling that Josh had the Z, which I don't think you can, he probably would pick something different because now, as you can see, the Z playing for 60 points in that lucrative spot on top of the A of Rye. So Josh, with a very simple word of zoo, getting a bingo score there, and Josh is out to the races in this game. Alec continues to struggle with these racks that are kind of low point in nature, but no bingos available. If Josh draws something good, that a 7-letter bingo, for example, it feels like it's always going to play hooking re. So this game could start to stretch away in Josh's favor with one more good draw here. JY, probably not what he had in mind towards that end.
Yeah, there's back at the way back when I played at the Calgary Scrabble Club, all the time there was a player named Shannon who would describe these as mocking racks, because he felt they were mocking him in the sense there was no bingo and that they were nice enough letters, but that he couldn't actually pull the trigger with any playable bingo words. So yeah, mocking racks. I was just actually going to describe that, but you kind of segued into that very nicely. That sums up Alec's rack so far, I would say.
That's a great term. I haven't heard that before, but it definitely mirrors the feeling that you get during a game when you have these sets of letters that feel like they're trolling you almost. So, mocking, maybe the more elegant way of saying trolling. So,
Yes, I think this is pre social media era that Shannon first started saying this. So yeah, there was probably that elegance still before the trolls under the bridge,
makes
literal or
sense.
otherwise. Oh, we got some Yage potentially going on here.
Yeah, so that would be an interesting play. Of course, sometimes when you are approaching a Scrabble turn, as Josh is here, you're looking at your tiles and you're thinking to yourself, what word would I love to play here? And the answer could be JAY or Yahe, however you would say that. Well, that's newly added recently. Yaje. You'd love to find a good spot to play that. It's like the best place to do so would be right here, hooking Bona on the board, and that might be a little bit too volatile. And Josh making a much safer um, play of Decay here for 44. Yes, this does leave the J, not a great bingo tile, but I think this play is significantly safer, Jesse. I kind of like it here.
Yeah, I think this is pretty sound. Perhaps the only consideration would be both the hooks that he had for re are now gone. So of course, he's just playing more a draw. But the nice thing with the previous plays he had so far is that he kept those options to potentially hook available to him. Now those are gone, which is fine. But I think for that many points, it's worth it. It's not like he's closed anything off on the right side. He's scoring well and leaving lots of options. He has at least one next turn where he should be able to score something. So I think it's pretty sound.
Agreed. Yeah, it does feel like a lot of the time after this play of Decay, the next play for Josh is going to be a solid J play up here, either just the J and the A that he has, or if he can draw something that fits in this spot right there. For example, like the M, which he just drew, that would fit beautifully right up there with Jam. Meanwhile, Alec with the first blank. So Alec made a bunch of moves so far. I think the first move left rate, the second move left neat, and the third move left neat. So three good bingo leaves, and at last, one of them maturing into a bingo of untrace. This is a valid word for those of you curious. 82 points. Seems like actually a good choice to me, Jesse, compared to the very similar uncrate in the same spot. And you could see it would have made a huge difference right here. The J on Josh's rack could play for a lot of points going down, but Alex's choice of untrace, that C, preventing those overlaps, could have been so damaging in situations just like this. So nice
Mm.
job. I think it's a good choice by Alec there.
Yeah, there's like always little subtle things you can do. I mean, you're not only thinking about damage control when you're behind, of course, but it's definitely something you can factor in when you. It's the nice thing when you see all the choices. When you have more than one option to go down that scores well, you can start getting really nitpicky. I mean, in both cases, there's the potential for higher counting tiles. You can still do something upward, with the choice of untrace, but without the J, and the Z's, of course, gone. So yeah, it's like little subtle ways of controlling. You can still score with it, but not giving away a freebie if it's avoidable. So yes, I would agree. It's a very nice choice.
And as expected, no real delay in Josh playing what really feels like his strongest play by a fair margin of Jam for 43. So Josh was already ahead, and he's going to be up by even more after that nice play. Alec surely hoping that he could play our beloved QIN up there. That would have been surely his preferred play. He's going to have to pivot to something else. It's always agonizing, Jesse, when you've got that Q and your best play for it gets eaten up by an opponent play. And now, as I'm believing he's going to do, you've got to keep it for next turn. Never a great feeling.
Mm. Remember the pre-QI days?
Oh my
Talk about
gosh.
holding on to a queue for a while. I remember how agonizing that was, and just actually how much more often you could get queue stuck. So yes, holding on to it, certainly it's not the most fun, but being able to unload it sooner more often is nice. And okay, there we go. We got okay.
Exactly.
I don't
So
always see this one. Sometimes I still skim over it, and it's been I don't know how long now since it's in there. When you grow up playing without it, it's just so hard to naturally see it.
yeah, for sure. That's definitely the case with a bunch of particularly bizarre two-letter words. Okay is kind of a weird one because there's not that many words that sound like that, right? Wouldn't you think if okay should be in the dictionary, it should be pronounced ok, but instead it sounds kind of like an acronym, but we have it. The K is very happy that it's in there. And I guess the nice thing about that play for Alec is it gives him a decent place to dump his Q next turn if he needs it. So there were a couple nice things about that for him. He has Niqab set up here, which he really wants to play right here with Bree as the hook there. That would be fantastic for him. But Josh, who is on turn right now, is going to beat him to the punch. He's drawn a hook for Re in the form of the D, and he has bingos, whichever he chooses between Deliria and Iridial. I think he's very, very likely to play those hooking Re here. In fact, I wonder what he could be thinking about, as I would probably want to have one of those bingos on the board ASAP, Jesse.
Yeah, I think it's probably just thinking about the board development. We know how good both of these players are, that they have fantastic work knowledge on both sides. I know Josh in particular, how much time he puts into studying. So it's most likely just seeing in his mind's eye how the board develops after the options and considering. That would be my guess. It's very unlikely it's related to the word knowledge.
Yeah, definitely agreeing with you there. Just thinking, as you say, Josh is probably thinking, well, I'm going to be up. I'm already up by this much. I'm going to be going up by even more after this play. What is the best way to create a board that allows me to protect my even bigger lead? And Iridial has a lot of things going for it, in the sense that it becomes a little bit more difficult to play an 8-letter bingo, in my opinion, after this, compared to Deliria, where there are more tiles that have a lot more space to work with. Here, maybe that's not so much the case. A lot of the tiles in this part of the board prevent the I and R from being as flexible as they might be further down the board. And Alec is instantly going to play Niqab. So that's just a case of maybe really good thought process on the part of Josh, but a tough outcome, as Alec gets exactly the spot he needs for his 60-point Q play, Jesse. That is a godsend for him.
Yeah, definitely helps him stay very much in this game. And this is one of those ones where I would agree with Josh's play at the end of the day here, as far as the choices. And then you just like, you know what, that's variance. Sometimes when something comes back, it's a nice spot by both players. And one of the things that makes anyone at the top of the game strong is they can shake this off and be like, you know what, I made the right choice. In the moment, the response sucks, to have to deal with 60 points coming right back. But you have to know you made the right choice, shake it off, and look for the next best play again.
Yeah. And you can see Alec is poised to potentially play another bingo through this N of hominies. He has it lined up instantaneously. It's going to be tough for Josh to find a way to block that, given that, in my opinion, some of his best plays are right here with Hooli or Hootie in this spot. Feels like that N is going to stay open, and we are likely to see another bingo for Alex. So fortunes in this game. We're going to try to get those scores updated as soon as possible, but a couple more points per player.
I'm just catching up on the chat now. Sorry, everyone. I wasn't logged into the live stream earlier. I'll be ready to respond to different things in the chat now. I see Akilesh has asked, what is WoW? That is one of the Scrabble lexica that are used in North America. It's the lexicon of choice that's used by the WIGPO organization. And then there is also NWL and there is CSW for the other options that are used in North America.
What could be clearer or simpler to understand? We play with 3, 4, 5 different lexicons. Why is that so difficult for you all to understand? Just teasing, of course. Oh, homilies. Okay, so this makes sense with that L open. I actually hadn't considered that these letters play in exactly the same order through that L, just without opening a triple word score. So I think that's definitely worth the 2-point sacrifice for Alec. To play homilies instead of hominies makes total sense. I hadn't actually seen that, but good on him. He is the one sitting in the chair there playing the game, and he did spot it. So now the game is knotted up again. I really thought Josh was on the verge of jumping out to a nice size lead on not that great of a board, Jesse. But the 60-point Q play and another bingo has Alec right back in the game. And look at that, air eights on the rack. That's the comeback could be continuing for him into a lead here.
Yeah, I think I've been seeing some notes in the chat as well talking about the variance of Collins in particular with respect to options on the board. And this would be a pretty textbook example. Just with just a few turns ago, just how big the gap was between Alec and Josh's scores. And now it's essentially level, and Alec's looking pretty good to use them all up again. Let's see, I'm just looking at Josh's rack here now as well. Yeah, as is mentioned in the chat, untraces and aerates would be the candidate spot at the moment next turn for Alec. And just looking to see for Josh, just what his playing options are here. Matthew Tunnicliffe points out hominies would have given up post-teen as a very nice option.
Oh, yeah, this O down here, not in the right spot to give Josh a bingo back. But yeah, you're mentioning what are Josh's options here. There's one really cool one. Of course, if you're Josh, you would like to use one of your two T's, but you've got a really cool insertion play of just NEP right here, making Rexes. You can put an E in between Rex and the S, scoring 35 points. Yes, you do keep both T's on the rack. But Jesse, I would think that test is actually a pretty darn good leave despite the duplicated T's.
Mm-hmm. I mean, if you're going to have something doubled, that would be pretty good, given the nature of EST. The chat's also pretty happy about pattern in that sort of same area with NEP. It's pretty nice as far as under overlapping, all that lappy goodness.
Oh, yeah, beautiful. So you can go even further across. You don't have to worry about that double T issue. But again, I actually feel like test might be good enough that you get an extra point for playing NEP, and you might actually get a few more bingos down holding ESTT than just ES plus 5 random tiles. So it's
Mm-hmm.
very close. I think there is a good argument to be made for patent, which I had not actually really looked at closely. And that might be the best play. You get more cracks at drawing another S from the bag. So yeah, definitely some things to recommend it there.
All right, for chat. I see Wayne Rooney's mentioned newer Scrabbler here. What determines whether a tournament uses WoW or a CSW? What are the biggest differences between them? Do pros prefer one or the other? Oh, that's a that's a landmine set of questions right there. Might have to touch on that with some pause time
Delicacy.
and delicacy. Diplomacy as we do. But to start with that, just while we're waiting, it looks like Josh is pondering Pat. Okay, no, he's going to write. Okay, we'll come back to your questions there, Wayne. Very likely it's going to be air rates right away, and then we'll just see what Josh picks up, and then perhaps start touching on your question.
Yeah, so pet the eventual play by Josh, really wanting to undouble that T and keep excuse me, the very strong ENST leave. Makes some sense to me, but that allows air eights to go down, and then Josh drawing no vowels in response. So he is all of a sudden seemed like he was in firm command, as we said, Jesse, but now he is trailing by 55 points with only one vowel. And the O of homilies taunting him again. Not only could he have played post-teen on that previous rack or pa-teens, now he could play Songfest if the O were higher up the board. But that's Scrabble for you. It can be mocking, as we mentioned earlier.
Yeah, except the location of the mocking racks have changed. It's now on the other side. I see that Matthew Tunnicliffe has pointed out untooled for Alec immediately through the Owen homilies on the next turn. So Um, yeah, if that comes down, that'd be pretty tough. We're also seeing Josh is using a lot of time. We know that Josh is a very speedy player on a lot of occasions, but here he's had a fair bit to wrestle through in the last couple of turns.
Yeah, we're trying to figure out there's something wrong with the tracking. So the S's here, it's showing 4 unseen S's, but there actually is we have the 1 on the board, 2 on the board, and Josh with the other 2. So this play of EF here is actually a great one. And Alec is going to play untooled. It is actually really interesting, Jesse. There is an argument to be made for slotting that play 1 square down. It would put the D in the triple lane, but that D would obstruct 7-letter bingos ending in S. That's really counterintuitive, but if you're reading FET as any kind of a S setup, I wonder if playing untooled 1 slot down might have some merit here.
Yeah, that's very, very interesting progressive line of thought there. Um, yeah,
So we
just
see the
counting.
bingo. Yeah, he's gonna play it in this is certainly the more standard spot, scoring 2 extra points, and getting 5 more from Josh's challenge, which I feel like, is there a chance that that might have been a rage challenge, Jesse?
I feel like it was. I mean, I was going to say when you were done, I kind of saw the look on Josh's face after Untooled went down. I feel like he knows that's a word 99% of the time in his mind. That is very likely a frustration challenge, especially given his draw.
Yeah, and not a good draw at all for Josh. FET, he kept something like SSGT and drew another G, the V and an N, not a vowel in sight. And Alec with Vigoro lined up on his rack, which he would probably be thrilled to play right here, dumping as many of those clunky tiles as possible. Um, Maybe he'll come up with some other idea. You can play your V on top of here, but this is a brutal, brutal situation for Josh. And Alec actually has 446 right now. So we're going to work on getting those scores and tracking a little more accurate next round. But yeah, this is a brutal situation for Josh. You mentioned it, I would actually say in general, there are certain things about Scrabble that Josh does very, very fast. See words, come up with definitions. He is actually very unique among tournament players in that he now studies the definitions of the words as well. So it's weird, Jesse, to say that. If you're a more casual fan watching the stream, it might strike you as totally bizarre to think that that would be a rarity within tournament Scrabble to actually know what the definitions of every word you play mean. But Josh is a unicorn in that sense.
Yeah. For the keeping definitions in your head, some will argue that that's a valuable mental space to store more words and to think of more patterns that you can encode a lot more easily if you just stick to the words and nothing but the words. There are some people who will study the part of speech, along with the word, and that's kind of their happy medium where they're like, oh, I don't know what it means, but I know it's a noun, or I know it's a verb, or an adjective, or something like that. I never even used to do that. On occasion, sometimes now, especially with Collins being Collins, I like to look and at least figure out, okay, this is a word that looks like a noun, but it's actually an adjective, so I don't try to hook an S on it or something like that, right? As I'm sure you can relate to.
Yeah, without question, any Scrabble player that's played at the tournament level long enough can relate to that for sure. And yeah, there's just limited brain space is really what it boils down to. I think the bigger factor, in my opinion, is that for a lot of us as Scrabble players, you kind of start out as a word lover for sure. I feel like we all love cool words and what they mean and etymology and things like that. And I think what happens somewhere along the way as you start playing tournament Scrabble is you realize this game is awesome for its strategic depth and replayability and finding those cool plays over the board of obscure words. And you realize that definitions have nothing to do with any of that stuff. And all you want is that strategic goodness, and knowing more of the words as playing pieces is how you access that. So there's just something I actually would prefer to frame it as Scrabble strategy being so alluring and fun that at some point the definitions are a worthwhile sacrifice to be able to access more of that strategic goodness.
Yeah, there's also been some, I can see some action in the chat talking about the nature of the brain. I can say I was actually studying to be a psychotherapist back in the day. I did not continue along that line. But even then, there was the idea of the brain being a hard drive. I saw that some people put in the chat that was challenged, and actually the research doesn't support the idea of the brain being a hard drive with limited space at all. That actually the infinite capacity of your mind is something that's really amazing there. It's just more efficiency as far as like learning theory is another item entirely, as far as attaching definitions to it, for example, if that helps keep it in. I saw, hi Vanita in the chat. I saw that she mentioned that that helps with retention. I think it can, absolutely. For some people, that might be the best way to go. Some might be just okay with doing just the part of speech. Some might find it just they want to cram in more words and find a pattern like, well, the alphograms are one example of patterns that people use. Or
Yeah.
mnemonics, people use to memorize word sequences. So like there's different ways that people retain information, but the brain is indeed limitless in its capacity, despite what people previously thought. So sorry, that's a long-winded answer. That was part of what I studied for a long time. So I can confirm, no, the brain is not limited as people once thought.
Yeah, that's very well said. Um, it's maybe that puts a little bit more of the onus on us as Scrabble players to unlock that unlimited potential of the brain and maybe try to learn some of those definitions that we leave by the wayside if we can use some of those memory devices to get them in there. But path of least resistance is often the one that we take. As Alec plays Vigoro, that seems like a solid play, blocking off the left side of the board. Other reasonable options for him could have been just playing Vogue up here. Doesn't really block anything to play up there, but it might prevent Josh from making setup plays of his own that open a better tile than the V. So playing Vogue has that nice attribute of the V is next to impossible to play to there. Either way, no real quibble with Vigoro trying to get to the end of the game. And in fact, it draws more tiles if you're Alec to try to get the blank or an S. And he's actually drawn the F, which is a useful tile for him here, Jesse, if he's worried about this S hook, which I think he definitely is after Josh's play of Vats. So drawing that F is going to let him block down there, and he's going to feel great once he does.
Yeah, that pretty much puts this entire board on lock once that is all dealt with. Josh has got to know that if Alec can do anything remotely blocky in the bottom, he will. I mean, you could even, without having the F there, you could play something parallel to the ED and untool downward. That would be very few points. But if you're really worried about it, Josh has got to know that it's going to be gone in some way next turn. So I think the time here is just thinking, can I do anything that gives me another spot with a remote chance? Although it's got to be low at this point in time. He's at the end of the game. He can take the time here to look to see, is there anything I can do to give myself a chance?
Yeah, always worth dreaming and coming up with magical scenarios. You really are in a position, if you're Josh, where, yeah, your odds of winning aren't great, but there's no reason not to concoct the most fantastical, wild scenario possible. And this is a good idea, in my opinion, because of the word spug. That is a valid word. He sets up his S. Um, wouldn't necessarily think of spug as a normal word, but because of the validity of that word, this is a very nice way to set your S up aggressively. And if Josh can draw some vowels, he could stand to hit a very big play on the top row. but no such luck. It's been quite a slog for him, Jesse, with respect to
Yeah,
drawing those useful vowels.
it's been a pretty tough go of it for him for sure. I am a fan of that play. I agree with it at the end of the day. I see that Aphilis in the chat has mentioned, if Josh runs out of time, is it a points penalty or the match is lost? It's a good question because there are other games that have timers where once you hit 0, the game is over. Scrabble is not like that. In Scrabble, regardless of the lexicon you play, ironically, one of the only things that is consistent is that you will lose 10 points for each additional minute beyond 0 that you go to. So as if Josh were to go under 0 at this point in time, then he would lose 10 points if he were to make his last play and finish the game before an additional minute was used, and so on and so forth. So that's just one way that Scrabble is uniquely different, as 0 is not quite 0. It is, but it isn't. 0 just means you start losing 10 points incrementally for each minute.
Yeah, I always find that to be slightly confusing in the sense that, the timer feels like in most other games when it hits 0, that's it, right? The game's over, you've lost, something decisive happens. In Scrabble, it's kind of a more gentle transition into a gradual point penalty that increases over time. That being said, I'm very used to that, Jesse, and I'm not. I think I would we already kind of our brains melt down when the time starts to expire. If it
Mhm.
meant you instantly lost the game, that effect would only become more pronounced.
Could only imagine, some of the odd plays. We already see strange plays, but even more odd plays that you would get at the end. How many times would ought, like OT, come up? I don't know how many times I've typed that out on a board
Yes.
online. There are those plays when you get to the end. I see Delph has gone down. I believe that's one of the types of plays you were talking about before that effectively outruns or ends um, the game just by scoring enough.
Yeah, I like this option, right? Because Alec has the Spug hook and the F's hook to worry about, but the base of the board is considerably more threatening due to the terminal S. S being the last word in a 7-letter word is significantly more common thanks to the way English inflects and conjugates, or however you would say it. So Alec electing to block the bottom makes a ton of sense from him. And without too much time left on his rack, Josh can know with certainty that with only one vowel on his rack and no vowels to really play through for an 8-letter bingo, he can go ahead and play swing at the top of the board. That is by far his best endgame option here. And it is back to Alec. And all that remains for him is to come up with his best endgame play. It looks like he's thinking about playing waiting here to go out. It turns out that you could score a lot more points with our favorite cat sound, meow. You could play that right here. Very nice, Jesse. It scores enough points, apparently, that it is worth playing, even though it would give Josh another turn to play something like Ret or maybe something better that I'm not seeing. You get enough more points for this that it works out slightly better. But again, that works out to literally a 2-point better margin of victory for Alec. And Jesse, I feel like there are times when stamina versus battling for every last point becomes more important.
Yeah, I think playing swing and everything, like you said, it's really just accepting like it's not happening anymore. And you're really just moving on to the next game mentally, keeping in mind that this is a multi-day tournament. It's not even just 2 days or even 2.5 days, as most of our longer tournaments are on long weekends. It's stretches out over 5 calendar days. You got to be able to, in order to do well at these events, put things past quickly. That's also the highs. Like it's easy to coast along and feel happy and in the zone when things are going really well. But then if you're not careful, one bad game can throw you off. So it's really just keeping even keeled, and that's one thing Nigel is excellent at. People were talking about Nigel lurking in the background and walking back and forth. Nigel's just totally even keeled, whether it's a blowout win for him or a loss of any kind. as he said to us many times before, he just enjoys playing, and that's it. And we could all take something from that. As good as we all want to be, and as close to perfect as we all want to be, he's just like, yep. He doesn't care. He says he literally doesn't care. He just plays for fun.
I really believe it in his case. As we know from other pastimes, not to throw shade on any content creators in other mind sports, Hikaru,
Ooh.
when we say, I literally don't even care, sometimes we actually do care.
Mm-hmm.
But in Nigel's case, I actually believe it. There's a lot of evidence that he really just likes to play and doesn't really mind the outcome that much. I think maybe the strongest piece of evidence beyond just his behavior and his affect, where people have said they literally cannot tell whether he's won and lost. I think for me, the biggest thing is that he never tries to play phonies. He's not doing little tricks and stuff to try to win every last game. He only seems concerned with playing beautiful, flawless Scrabble. If you really cared about winning above all else, I think he might try to play some phonies. I think he might mix it up and do some exploitative plays in the end game, but he never does that. I just don't think it's a priority for him.
It's not. I mean, I know that you probably remember the infamous SOS play that he did for 3 points once. Way back when he was very clearly losing, as a little shout out to the annotators at the time. So if anything, the only time he's really intentionally deviated, from strategic play and thinking has been in the art of humor, with SOS, as he was getting his butt kicked in that one particular game.
Yeah, that was a hilarious situation. And if memory serves, it was in a match play format where point spread was not as important, I think. So that would have enabled him to have a little fun like that without any real repercussion for his tournament standing. So yeah, we all have our limits of the gags and things that we want to do. But Nigel actually is actually very funny. He's made a few comments just adjacent to me at tournaments, just off the cuff remarks where I've laughed my ass off in response to them, including NASPA president Chris Cree ordering him to get a new score sheet, and Nigel starting to swing his arms like a tin soldier and say, yes, sir, you want, sir. Couldn't believe that. So yeah, all right. So post-mortem here, I'm not sure. There's still, Josh Castellano definitely won to go over the game. I guess we'll listen in.
W
A or E?
A or E is good, because then I have
Tongs
signs,
doing
times, right? Times.
Yeah, tongs is good.
Sign, wasting, I guess 4.
Yeah.
Times is good, right? Yeah, the process
Yes.
is waiting. Like, yeah.
And if you have E, you get twinges there. And you draw I, you get so much.
You have the F, so wait, what if can I draw like? There's no way I can draw F.
Like I still like you go here, and
Yeah.
I calculated that I outrun.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, okay, yeah, surely you calculated it if you played something. Okay, it would have been closer. Would not have been. Cool. There's some crazy like. No, there's no way. Like, what if I draw FW? But then I just never have bingos. Maybe this would win because I have all the power tiles, but I don't. There's no bingo here. I need like another vowel to make it work.
I would need an I to play Isled.
Ooh.
And even then, that might not outrun the big stuff there.
Well, I mean, like what big stuff with
It probably does.
So if I draw like this, what if
It's a
like
lot closer.
what if like FW is in the bag? Are you screwed here? I guess you play Isle, right?
Let's see, Dealburn doesn't fit.
Oh shit.
I'm ahead by 91 at this point.
It should be enough. You also don't have to empty the bag. You could just play one. Just drop the I here. Yeah, you probably figure this out.
This would be 21. I would be up by 112. I would draw that. So I really feel like I'm up by 90. And so you need to score 90 to tie.
Is that enough?
That is 91.
So probably I'll no good, but I think like you just play this, right?
Vigoro just kept a D.
You just played this. Is this the best spot for like an I?
So that's 12.
It's pretty good. I mean, I guess the problem is I can just counterfish. But, well, okay, then it gets like really complicated. Well, I probably need the W to triple.
So suppose I draw the other W.
I don't want to play this. I want 3 extra for the W, not 2 extra. Like what? Now what am I doing?
If I draw the other W, it's hard to block down here. But if you draw the F after fishing off the W, then what do you have?
I don't think I have anything.
Is Saft an adjective?
Yes. I feel, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Surely you have like something here. Okay. Yeah, I guess some of them get really sweaty. Wait.
Oh, that could be that too.
8.
Don't
Oh
put
wait, no.
anything.
I'm gonna put the D here. 8. Something 8. W. Huh. Seems just really close to a bunch of stuff. But doesn't seem like I can pull this one out.
Given I have the F, yeah.
I mean, yeah, okay. It seems like I need an extremely
Yeah,
specific sequence.
Yeah, Delph kept raw. So, was it raw? No, it was gnaw. It was gnaw.
All right, maybe let's bring it back up into the booth as these two go into a remarkably deep post-game post-mortem, Jesse. I think maybe the biggest thing as the players debating how realistic Josh's winning chances were after Pug is I actually wasn't realizing the bingo lane here with rail hooks is kind of a fun lifeline to have on the board. I wasn't focused on that very much. So that's a factor I didn't consider that seemingly, I'm not sure if Josh or Alec did during the game, but they just realized it there.
Yeah, I think I wasn't even looking there so much either, especially just with well, in this case there was 2 Gs, there was also the P, you know, and just how immediately it assisted his rack while creating a hook for ing bingos. But yeah, I wasn't really thinking about that lane so much. Thinking especially because of the G and it not going to be making an ing play if you were to use it in the H vertical lane there, ending in E. G is not necessarily a bingo killer in the same way that a V is in most cases, but certainly can make things difficult if it's not at the end, as it most often is. Yeah, wasn't really looking in that spot. I'm not sure what the percentage would be on pulling something out there, but it seemed like they were agreeing that it didn't seem super likely, and if it was there, that it would have to be a very specific sequence, using Josh's own words.
Yeah, agreed. That's I think he hit on it there. But when you get down to those single digit or sub 1% winning chances, there are some times where you have to fixate on those incredibly specific sequences that might somehow deliver you the win. And every so often on stream, we get to see one of those become reality, and it's pretty magical when that happens. So in any case, that does it for our first round of the day. A matchup where Josh got off to a fast start, but then Alec just barraged with some bingos and some very nice strategic plays to come up with a much needed win, pulling Josh Castellano back to the pack just a little bit. And when we look at the standings, the player who currently stands the most to benefit from that loss by Josh is none other than our former World Scrabble champion, Wellington Jigare, Jesse. And we're going to be watching him in the very next round.